From Worldwide Technology, this is the AI Proving Ground podcast. Across the enterprise landscape, leaders are confronting a familiar tension. Everyone is talking about AI factories, but very few can tell you what one actually is. The term has become a kind of industry Rorschach test, a buzzword loaded with promise, urgency, and confusion. At its core, the idea is deceptively simple. Take raw data in, move it through a series of production lines, models, workflows, and automation, and produce something of value on the other side. Insights, decisions, new applications, even entire agentic systems. But as today's guest will tell you, the gulf between that concept and executing it inside of a real organization is wide. We'll be talking with Craig Dillman from HPE, who comes from a world where factories weren't metaphors, they were supercomputers, and Earl Dodd from WWT, who has spent years helping organizations modernize, operationalize, and when necessary, rebuild the very foundations beneath their data and AI ambitions. These are two experts who have lived the AI factory story longer than most of the industry has had a name for it. Because for enterprise leaders, the question isn't whether you need an AI factory, it's whether you're ready to build one that will make sense a year from now. So let's jump in. Craig, welcome to the AI Proving Ground podcast. How are you today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. And Earl, it's always good to see you. How are you?
Great. Glad to be back.
Awesome. We're talking about AI factory, which is a growing buzzword right now in the industry. Everybody seems to be latching onto it, but I don't really know if everybody has clarity and definition around what it is. Craig, from HPE's perspective, what is an AI factory and what should it be doing for organizations?
Yeah, I think about this there's kind of two ways I think about it.
Yeah.
And AI factory, let's call it the lowercase f. We're going to think about it conceptually.
Okay.
And then I'm sure we'll get into a conversation about what's HPE's AI factory, and we'll capitalize the F for
the proper noun, yeah.
Brand marketing purposes there. But the conceptual idea, I think it is a good analogy, right? We're trying to draw the distinction or help our customers see that there's a way to build and deploy and operationalize specialized infrastructure, and that's software as well, to take raw inputs, and if we think about our raw inputs are really data here, move it through the production floor, and that's really AI models, and then there's going to be an output. There's going to be a product that you produce, and that's actually probably a broad category of things that you produce. If you wanted to try to encapsulate it, you might just say actionable insights. Now, there's a lot, it's a trained model, or there's actual decisions, there's automation, there's agents, there's a new application. Any of those things might be what you produce, but you could all kind of grab them all under the idea of the heading of some kind of actionable insight. So raw data in, push it through the factory, through those production lines, and output insights.
Yeah, and Earl, sticking with the lowercase f in this instance, it's easy to look at a factory and say, oh, there it is, it's producing whatever the end goal might be. But what are the piece parts? What's making up the factory at least as we have it today?
Yeah, so Craig, I felt a little bit of PTSD coming on of my macroeconomics class, thinking about factors or, of production and everything else. So you're right, and we have the same concept, and we put that into our wheel, studio, foundry, factory, and everything else. But and you mentioned, the components of software. What we need is on the factory floor, so to speak. There are the bits and pieces, acceleration as a service, etc. But don't forget about the people in the factory, the talent, and we find that is one of the big skills gap right now out there, and a competitive advantage with our partners, especially like with HPE, to have the people with that partnership to help drive and build the factory.
That's right.
And so it's more than just the componentry. It's more than just how you put these people. It's the process and the people together. So if you're familiar with something called an iron triangle, access, quality, cost, what we're doing is working on all legs of that iron triangle, and that's what the factory is about, giving you that access. the quality, the people, the capabilities at a price performance per watt cost.
Yeah.
That's the iron triangle.
Okay. Well, let's put the capital F on it here, and that stands for
Oh,
factory.
which one?
I don't want to get an
capital F?
explicit rating on the podcast this week. Craig, let's talk about the differentiation here. A lot of companies have their own flavors of AI Factory. What is HPE's vision for AI Factory, and where do you think you differentiate in the market?
Yeah, there's a couple of things to think about here too. And first and foremost, because we're here at SC, I think it's probably interesting to take a step back. And in fact, one of my colleagues and I were just talking about this morning, that if you kind of peel back and think about what HPC, which is traditionally, not really necessarily an AI workload, but has been around for decades, building a workload-focused, specialized set of infrastructure and people and processes for this one workload. What the AI Factory looks a whole lot like is an HPC cluster.
Well,
in a lot of ways. And so
I've been telling people that all the time.
That's right. So we've been doing the AI Factory, or we've been building a factory that is very similar to what we now instantiate as an
Absolutely.
AI Factory, actually for decades.
Yeah.
And so that's maybe a good backdrop. Now, what is HPE's vision for it? And what Earl mentioned earlier, kind of around that triangle, is an important piece, especially as we help customers operationalize it. So what I mean, I'm thinking about AI as a relatively new workload. Mm-hmm. Maybe the building this large specialized cluster is not a new thing, but the workload is. That is the new thing. That's setting. We all know it's setting the world on fire. But moving from experimentation, or even just proof of value, or starting out, looks a lot different in production, and so being able to take this blueprint for an AI factory and make it repeatable, make it predictable, both on performance and governance. How do you take this workload and make it operationalized? And so maybe a little double entendre. We think about the factory metaphor here, that you've got a production line. Well, it's producing something, but in the IT world, we know that we're talking about how do you deploy something in production. That's different than test dev.
Right.
And so our HPE AI Factory is really about how do we help our customers move AI into production at scale.
Yeah. Well, Earl, I mean, I like that we're talking, like Craig's mentioning, this is just a big HPC cluster. It's just a supercomputer. And before we start rolling here, you're talking about how that's right in HPE's wheelhouse. So from your
correct.
perspective, tell me about why this is the kind of the right time, right place, where HPE and the AI Factory are coming together and really making a big difference.
Absolutely. Just for the audience, SC stands for the Supercomputing Conference. It's the largest conference in the world. It happens to be here,
your
hometown. I've been doing it for almost 30 years now. For SC, I started on my first Cray, which is now part of HPE in 1978, right? And so what goes around comes around. It's just back to the future here, and we didn't call it AI back then. We called it analytics, or then there was this big data and everything else. But it only takes you 20, 30 years to be an overnight success. So,
Right.
No, so bringing it all back is most people don't realize the value of HPC and supercomputing as an underpin, literally a foundation piece of technology and computing and capability to drive new and novel capabilities. And one of those capabilities is this thing called AI. Now, what's a little bit different, and this is where we have this convergence coming on between AI, HPC. Same coin, different sides, okay? There's still the integration, the co-integration that we do with HPE and building it, whether it's in a Cray supercomputing doing CFD, computational fluid dynamics work, versus AI and generative AI, where it's still the same foundation. Now, where it started is a little bit different. The HPC guys have been doing scientific and technical computing. The AI guys have been doing this, things around the computer vision and modeling and simulation, and started out this, on the other side. Now they've come together, and one of the things I think is the most important part here, as we work with HPE, is how do we co-integrate these systems, because it's not a one-size-fits-all, and there's just not one application. There is multi-tenancy, which is a big thing that I look at for HPE, is bringing that all together. So software and the processes to build that to give me the accordion effect of more over here in classic 64-bit and more over here now in this AI and generative AI and the explosion that's coming with inference. Yes. I mean, foundational models are good, and we're still selling and doing a lot of integration there. But now I got to use and consume. I got to produce. That's right. I got that factory line.
I mean, Craig, is that all part of the operationalizing go-to-market here? I mean, that sounds like that's really how we're helping organizations operationalize the concept of an AI factory. Is it bringing it to the data? Like, how do you help that?
Yeah, well, I'll try to circle back to that, but I want to respond to something that Earl brought up. And this is what I personally, and I know our HPE teams will run into a little bit, especially in kind of this new world of AI. It's a new workload. And so there's a reasonable response that we have from enterprise customers, not from research universities, not from Department of Energy, not the supercomputer, the ones that have been building large-scale HPC clusters. Sure. They understand everything that Earl was just talking about. But a lot of our enterprise customers are trying to kind of find their way of, where do I start with this? And so it's easy to get a little bit skittish when you hear a vendor come in or a partner come in and start talking about supercomputers, these kind of row scale, data center scale clusters. And I'm an enterprise customer, and I go, slow your roll, Craig. That's way too big. And so part of HPE's AI factory portfolio, our solution approach, actually serves both of those customers. Okay, so we have an AI factory. We were kind of building this before AI factory became a buzzword. Yeah. It's called Private Cloud AI. Yeah. And this is really built for those enterprise customers that are trying to...
Plus, you're adding that business model to that through GreenLake.
That's
so
right.
That's very important to dip your toe into the water, so to speak, to build up into the...
That's right.
Eventually, the bigger shirt sizes.
That's right. So we've got Private Cloud AI, which is an AI factory. It fits those definitions that we've talked about, but it's really aimed for inference, RAG, fine-tuning at a relatively smaller scale, but still something that is very useful to operationalize IT for our enterprise customers. And then there's the bigger brother. There's the AI factory at scale that HPE offers, and there's AI factory for sovereign, what we call for sovereign customers, which introduces an additional layer of security, of multi-tenancy, hard multi-tenancy. So HPE really has three key pillars of our AI factory portfolio: Private Cloud AI for the enterprise, AI factory at scale, and sovereign AI factory. And WWT has been a clear early adopter of this vision and this technology. In fact,
I think
that Private Cloud AI, you guys bought maybe the very first.
We were the first, and it sits. We have two. We have small and medium, and going to large at the Advanced Technology Center. So we're growing.
Yeah. Can I just say too, I'm here at Supercompute with a lot of these customers and channel partners as well, and vendors and consulting. Everyone is here. All of the ecosystem is here, and you can't go very far without someone mentioning or knowing the ATC. But
that's right.
It's just the ATC.
They may not know WWT. They know the ATC.
It's the ATC.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we'd love to hear that.
Yeah. No. I mean, it is the biggest country club of technology on the planet. Over $1 billion worth of investment in there. HPE has been a very sound partner from the beginning. Coming up, I'm not saying I've been trying to get the Cray in there, give me a GX, but for some reason I don't have a. I don't have the GX in there.
GX in there yet.
But we have all the PCAI stuff and the capability. To tie this all together, the customer, the industry, and it doesn't matter which domain, whether we're talking about governments or sovereign clouds or whoever, the automotive company, aerospace, et cetera, et cetera. Everybody's at a certain place along the journey. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's why we start where they're at and go through a capability maturity curve, do the inventory and everything else. And that's why we have Studio Foundry, factory capability. That's why we have our wheel, so to speak, and we meet them where they're at. And then we kind of step back a little bit and talk about the use cases, what they want to produce, the 5 whys, everything else, your kids, why? And anyway, we do that and we bring them on a journey. The thing that's really, really important, and it was important in HPC, and people forget about this in this AI. It's a journey. It's a journey. It's just that we don't drop off, that you procure it, drop off the kit, and voila, it magically is there, and ROI is coming out of it. Right. Return on investment and stuff. So we spend a lot of time, in the beginning to make sure we know the metrics of success to drive this, de-risk it through our best partners, through the Advanced Technology Center to deliver it, to give you the best opportunity to drive ROI, TCO. We have a new term when we talk to academia and institutions and things like that, return on the research, ROR, who's getting the next Nobel Prize, that kind of thing. So there are different groups out there in the world that says, oh yeah, I can get you the kit, I can throw it into the rack, I can install it. What do you do next?
Right.
There's people involved.
Yeah. A slight shift, but I've seen Antonio Neri, HPE CEO Antonio Neri, talk a lot about the idea and need for control when it comes to AI and the AI factory. You mentioned sovereignty. Why is that control increasingly important, and what type of value does it provide kind of on the back end?
Yeah. To me, you start to have to go kind of back to the beginning of where is value being created.
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about this AI factory, and something's being produced, and increasingly AI is helping our customers, and that could be, an enterprise, that could be a small and medium business enterprise, all the way up to a state, to a national, interest. Mm-hmm. And so if the value that you're creating, those insights, those applications, those become intellectual property, those become strategic differentiators, or they become, in some cases, instrumental to national health or security.
Sure.
Clearly, you can see why there's an interest on having as much control over that as possible. There's also regulation that comes with that. We've seen it. We're living it right now.
Right, especially in Europe.
In Europe,
right
that's
now,
right.
Now we're living the amount of reduction in water, cap in power, decibels in the data center itself.
So there's absolutely a control piece that is about how do I make sure that I've got my IP, my value creation stack, and others don't have access to it either accidentally or deliberately.
Yeah,
right?
through our
maliciously
backs or whatever.
But then there's also a cost piece to this.
Sure.
And the public cloud has been transformative to all of our customers, right, over the last several years. What we see with specialized workloads, especially ones that are in high demand, like AI, it brings a cost element to it, and the volumes of data that are associated with training, fine-tuning, and inference as well, especially when you get into agentic, multi-agent workloads.
Absolutely, with certain tokenomics, tokens per second,
That's right.
et cetera.
The data volumes are massive, and so it changes the economics of public cloud. So you kind of combine these two things of what's my tokenomics in a public environment, and what are my data sovereignty or intellectual property concerns. We're seeing, and I'm sure you are too, a massive repatriation on some workloads. That's not to say others don't fit.
Absolutely. There was this mentality that it started out with. My granddaddy said it had to be on premises here, and then my daddy said that it had to be cloud first. What I'm saying right now to my kids, use analogy. Sorry, I mean it's a terrible analogy, but is what is appropriate.
Yeah.
What is practical? What is cost effective? Right. And it's based on the business model is based on many things. The world is heterogeneous. The world is hybrid. Now, going back to the control, there's not only the control of the intellectual property, everything I agree, but there's the control plane. Yes. There is that plane that needs to come together and optimize across workloads that make up workflows to drive this, and so are we mature in some of this? We're not mature yet. I'm sure we're adolescent and beyond, but we're starting to get into more of how does this work, especially with these sovereign clouds and requirements. Now, there is regulation. It's coming to North America. You're going to see these swings in. What I tell everybody at the end of the day, math always wins. Math always wins. Remember when DeepSeek hit, a year ago or so, the market went, oh my gosh, the sky's falling and everything else. And I go, just wait. The problem and opportunity is still there. We still have the need to solve something. We got to produce something. They may have produced it better. Anytime I install a supercomputer or a machine or SuperPod, it doesn't matter, right? A PCAI system, I can optimize it and more work comes. There's always a backlog.
Right.
And so we're going to see more math. We're going to see better models. We're going to see truncations and pruning of things of nature. And that is good for everybody. And that means I can start solving more and more difficult problems.
This episode is supported by HPE Juniper Networking. HPE Juniper Networking delivers high-performance networking solutions to simplify IT operations. Build a secure and scalable network with HPE Juniper Networking's innovative technologies.
As we think about kind of feeding the AI factory, capital F or lowercase f, whichever one you want to choose, with data, recognizing that these AI workloads are coming from everywhere, increasingly at the edge, how does HPE kind of configure that into here? At least as I've read into it, that seems to also be a differentiator here for us.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think probably when we think the capital F, now I'm regretting my case.
Well, they'll edit it out. Don't worry.
No, that's right. Okay. But the portfolio that we would kind of brand under AI Factory is clearly going to be data center focused, as it should be. But that doesn't mean there's not significant capabilities or opportunities for this distributed edge AI. And so whether it's data ingest from multiple sources, having an AI factory wherever it's landed, being able to collect from, manage, pre-provision, do all of the what we've learned over the big data history of what are all these ETLs that I have to do, consolidate and put governance rings around data, who can access it and when, to make it ready for the workload. That's actually a very significant piece of an AI pipeline, is ingest to training or fine-tuning.
Yeah, ingest to insight. Exactly. I'm going to answer your cyber question. I want to get that. But my number one net new growth area is the intelligent edge. Okay. And so when we think, yes, there's a factory, little F factory here, but not everything is built in that factory. There might be another factory to the left, the right. Remember, there's different tiers of the supply chain feeding that. So, and everybody has a different definition of what the edge is, but there are different factories or tiers starting to feed into the big beast.
Right.
Okay. And so what I tell people is we are just getting into this, there's a circle here, or a spring. It goes from specialization to commoditization, democratization, and going around. We're kind of going around this. So now this AI factory, people are putting it into the big systems, but you've got to look at all the other tiered providers of that supply chain coming in. Those are on the edge, maybe even far edge and farther edge out there. And so not everything has to be the big supercomputer like in my world, but we're seeing a lot of this. So getting back to orchestration and control, that's very important to know the feeder system in that. And from a cybersecurity perspective, that becomes paramount because those are new attack surfaces in there. The thing I love about HPE is that cybersecurity is not an afterthought.
Yeah.
Right.
It is part of the zero trust model. It is in there in the beginning, from the hardware architecture, from securing it in their entire supply chain. I know whether I have to go to a government customer or an enterprise customer that still requires FIPS 140-3, stuff like that. You've got to make sure that you think, I think of the yin and yang kind of thing. I think data is there, and I think cybersecurity is there. They're both together. That is the center or hub of my universe, and then I put the spokes of this accelerator or that storage or that piece of memory.
And so to that point, Earl, let's think about the HPE AI factory. And I know we talked about that. At the far right of the spectrum, we're working with sovereign states, or in some cases it's governments, in some cases it's federally funded or mandated universities. But if we are meeting the security requirements at a national sovereign level, you're absolutely right that we have to bake in from the beginning. It's not a bolt-on; it's a bake-in on how do we ensure that we meet those regulations and exceed them in some cases. Observation,
observability, repeatability, and as my Marine Corps guys say, agility is the new capability. And so, but that agility starts with having a true, distinguished foundation. Sit there, and that foundation is based on trust, and trust is based on cyber.
No, I mean that's a great foundation to move forward with. You talking about how agility is kind of that superpower. Craig, how does HPE think about agility, resilience, knowing that things change so quickly all the time? Does the concept of the AI factory just continuously evolve with those evolving standards, or how do you think about that?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because we've kind of been talking about the factory a little bit without I don't know that we need to go into every piece of the layer cake of what that solution provides, but a key piece of what we're doing in our AI factory strategy is, I think how Earl said it earlier, you said an accordion, right? You're talking about flexibility. So for us, what that means is the capability to bring in, to integrate tools, whether it's on the data side, whether it's on the machine learning operation side, whether it's in the Kubernetes orchestration and automation side, or even in the HPE scheduling, tools that are highly utilized and leveraged. What we have today is it's fair to call it a curated stack, but it's not locked.
That's really important. It's still open architectures that allow you to meet the customer where they're at.
That's right. And we don't know what tomorrow's tool is going to be. And so we're designing our AI factory solutions in such a way that when that next wave comes, or when a tool chain or new model or new capability hits the market, and they're happening faster and faster, right? We've got to be able to incorporate those in, but still maintain the governance, observability, scalability parameters, right? We're about productionizing. We're not in science project land. This is grown up production grade utilities.
Right? You got to do return on research, return on the investment. At the end of the day, these are not toys. They keep us safe. They find the cure for cancer. I'm not sure if we can get the airlines scheduling systems working yet, but we can certainly try, right?
That's right.
For me, I started, like I say, back in the 70s, not 1870s, 1970s, okay? And this is deja vu to me. We kind of go through these cycles every 15-ish years and thing. So this is the new third cycle. What I think is important, especially for HPE, is you've acquired SGI and Craig, from my world and a lot of other people, but you have this entire zeitgeist, this knowledge base to draw from. Okay, and the people that succeed in the world is learn from history.
Right.
And to do that. Do we all make mistakes? Of course, but we lead and we fail forward, move forward, fix, and continue to go on and build these tools and capability and have the people. The number one threat to the United States, if you go into the intelligence community, is not these countries. It's the lack of talent, the lack of skills.
That's interesting to bring up. You're right to keep coming back to the people side of it. It is interesting as we have been deploying both the enterprise AI factory and also these at scale AI factories. We've learned some things.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And I think one of those key learnings has been it's got something that provides true value to our customers has got to be more than just a reference architecture. And that's a starting place,
right?
Certainly. But then where does that reference architecture enter into the real world? Just maybe a simple example of that is one of our AI factory deployments. On paper, we draw out the schematics. We've got the rack elevations. We have calculated where the cables go, how many we need, and then we move into deployment phases with the customer and their facilities team. And it turns out they don't have room for 16 racks in a row. We're going to have to span across multiple racks. It also turns out this customer had a compartmentalization, kind of a security policy years and years ago in their data center that said each rack in my data center must be self-contained. In fact, they welded it so that it would be, and the cable conduit passage between racks was about that large.
Yeah, well,
no. Okay, for an AI factory.
No, when I got this.
Right, immediately he knows, that's not going to work.
Exactly.
So in the real world, now we're including in part of the statement of work and part of what we're doing with our customer includes a blowtorch Okay, that you don't find that in the reference architecture documentation that you may need.
Well, that's again, that comes back to that agility or flexibility.
Yeah.
So I just came from the ATC.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were doing a customer demo. Very large organization to put in a very large HPC AI supercluster and everything else. And they asked, what's the biggest risk? And the biggest risk, there's many risks, but going into these customers that have older data centers that have been doing it, has a culture of this is the only way it can be done or is done here. We find it's not necessarily a technology issue. It's the smaller things. The blow, bring your own blowtorch, things like that. We have problems with now testing ceilings to hold, for ceiling loading. In the old days it was floor loading. Right. Now it's ceiling loading because these cable trays, bundles are huge, and those are the learning curves. But the key is what we learn and what they learn. HPE learns. We put it together.
That's right.
It's a synergistic effect. I'm positive I have not been to a data. I'm positive that I'm going to go to a data center that's going to have a new challenge. Okay, I don't know what it is. I'm afraid that there's like an 8-inch water main above me or something like that. But we just have to be agile. We have to ask these questions up front. We have to have a reference architecture is good. And again, it's like my one MEF people. Our battle plans are great until I hit the beach. I have to have that agility.
And I think is what you're getting at saying, if you think about the AI factory, it's not just about the gizmos and gadgets inside that it's easy to think of. You're talking about the bricks.
I'm talking about
everything.
It's a holistic thing, and this is the beauty that WWT brings. Okay, and a big bad business partner here like HPE brings is that we've done this before, and we can put our cut sheets at the NAIC or whatever integration center we're at and put this all together, and then we can problem solve. Not everybody has the skill sets that WWT has to do what DOE, I'm trying to get DOE, the Department of Energy, to rethink their word. They call it co-design, which means they're extorting money from you. But to do co-integration, it is all about creating a balanced, capable system that runs from day 0 to day 2.
Yeah, clear. That's great that you brought up day 0 to day 2. I want to come back to that in a second. I want to pull back for a second too to think about the enterprise side of it. Like if you live in the HPC world again, that sometimes gets a little scary, right? That I'm not the DOE, and we're talking about some of the challenges throughout the whole stack, whether it's facilities or data center or technology or people. That sounds like a big, hairy problem I've got to solve. And again, what private cloud AI for our enterprise customers who maybe aren't staffed or don't have the history of building high-performance compute, GPU-enabled clusters, and all that comes with that, private cloud AI is a way to say, let's make that friction part easier for you. And we're gonna build it in our factory, and that's not just rack it, stack it, power it, cable it. It's also install it so that when it arrives on day 1, you're ready to start.
And you can do the managed piece of that through the GreenLake model. So we have to look at things through the entire life cycle, the entire value chain. And the challenge that I see with some vendors and maybe some of our competition is they're good at one thing, but the value chain is long.
Yeah.
And you've got to have this hysteresis loop. Sorry, that was a technical. You've got to have this self-learning and reinforcing loop in there to learn. Not just, hey, I'm building a model to do an LLM or an SLM. To do it, how do we integrate it? How do we operate it? How do we secure it? How do I just get all the different stakeholders in the same room? Oh, that's what WWT provides, is just getting everybody in the same room to get to a common vocabulary.
Yeah. We're coming up on the bottom of the episode here, so short on time.
Oh, I got 20 hours left.
20 hours left. Yeah, there you go. But what we're talking about here is building an AI factory that's resilient to whatever the future holds. So we'll end, as we typically do, kind of on what do we expect coming forward. It's a good time of year because we're approaching the end of 2025. We're about to head into 2026. Craig, what are we going to see as it relates to the future of the idea of the AI factory? What is it going to have to account for in the future? It could be, agentic, more of a shift towards inference. It could even be something like quantum, or who knows what it might be. What's on the horizon that we need to be paying attention to next year?
Yeah, I think you hit two really key ones, and agentic and inference, they go to me hand in hand.
Yeah.
What we've maybe a year ago or so, and beyond that, LLM was. Everyone was starting to learn, how do I think about how many billion parameters do I need to be able to handle? And we're thinking almost in monolithic, what's the biggest, baddest model, and will it solve everything? And I think this year, in 2025, what we've seen is a rapid innovation cycle to say, maybe that's not the most efficient way. And this is always the way, right? If I can subdivide the work and make it more task-specific, it becomes more high. I can utilize more. Yeah. It's more efficient. Yeah. And so this is where really agentic AI has landed this. And Earl mentioned, he said LLMs and SLMs, small language models, in a task-specific agentic workflow that's operating together, has become kind of the next flywheel, I think, for how do enterprises, how do our customers actually deploy this and make it more and more usable. I think there's a lot of talk. You see, I think it's the New York Times and Wall Street Journal both had some articles. If you're on LinkedIn at all, you're seeing it probably every week. You'll see these AI is not providing any ROI. What's the promise? But the customers aren't actually seeing it. And to me, being able to get to these more task-specific, interactive, and integrated workflows are the way forward to start to see some real customer value that is narrowed in on your industry or your specific account. Now, that's kind of the background, because what happens is, even though it's a smaller language model, the data needs explode. Mm-hmm. Like the data that is produced, the compute resources that are required for inference are going to far outstrip what we've seen already that have been massive for model training. Yeah. And so having the capabilities to scale quickly in a secure, governed, observable, repeatable, IT ops driven kind of flow, I think is going to be crucial for our customers to catch and ride that wave.
Yeah. Yeah. Earl, any closing thoughts based on what Craig
so
said?
I'm in total agreement. I'm going to add a little bit. I think 2026 is going to be the year of the data bottleneck. By the way, there'll be an article coming out on that. What I've seen through this whole process the last couple of years is by the way, I want to use the word accelerator, not GPUs. Okay.
Why?
Because there are other kinds of accelerators. GPU is a very good accelerator. We still sell a ton of FPGAs. We're seeing quantum in there. There is a new class of inference engines that are being built. And those are going out to these small language models at the edge, out into the smaller factories, the AI factories out there. But thing that runs the AI, that runs the world, is data. Data is the new oil. Data is the new gold, etc. So we're going to see in 2026 the move definitely to inference and agentic, but the world of being truly data-centric at this point.
Well, just real quick, I know that was the last question, but what happens downstream when that data bottleneck leaks or whatever it might be? Like, what are the impacts downstream?
There's significant impacts. What most people don't realize, for every single byte of data that is created or whatever, there is 10 to 1,000 metabytes of metadata. Mm-hmm. Data itself is not necessarily the intellectual property. It's the meta information associated with that data, and that's where the protections are starting to come. Yes, it's a little bit different with PII and PHI and things like that, but they would use that information to find out that I have a genomic characteristic that I might be susceptible to this or that. That's the meta information associated. So with HPE and others, in our portfolio, is working to make sure that the conveyor belt, this factory of production, is secure. The new attack vector is the parameterization of your workload. Yeah. If I mess that up, I can do nefarious things.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I mentioned we were short on time here, so we'll wrap on that. But to the two of you, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
Out of your busy schedule this week, I know a lot going on at SC25, so hopefully you're enjoying that show, and we're learning a lot that we could take into 2026 and really drive some meaningful customer outcomes. And Craig, thank you again to you and HPE for the great partnership that we have here.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, today we heard something subtle but important. An AI factory is a living system. People, processes, infrastructure, and governance, all working together to turn data into durable, defensible value. The AI factory you build today has to be resilient to whatever comes next. Agentic workloads, data bottlenecks, new accelerators, new regulations. It's not a one-time project. It's an operating model. This episode of the AI Proving Ground podcast was co-produced by Naz Baker, Kara Kuhn, and Diane Devry. Our audio and video engineer is John Knobloch. My name is Brian Felt. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.